My name is Jonah Walker, and today I'm going to tell you the story of how one ordinary conversation inside a supervisor's office pushed my entire life sideways. I thought I understood loyalty, hard work, and patience until the moment I realized the people above saw me as nothing more than a tool they could keep running until it broke. What happened next sparked a chain of events I never saw coming, and trust me, you'll want to follow every second of it. Before we jump in, tap that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Your messages keep this channel alive and give me the fuel to bring you more real-life stories that hit close to home. Clouded early winter morning hung over manufacturing when I found myself sitting stiffly across from Mason Harris, flipping through a stack of papers that summarized 6 years of my life. He held my promotion request like it was an ad someone taped to his mailbox, barely worth glancing at. All those extra shifts, the weekend outings I canceled, the moments with my boy that slipped away. Every bit of it was tucked inside that work folder he kept skimming past. When he finally lifted his head, he offered that forced grin he used whenever he'd already decided how a conversation would end. "Your performance is solid, but we're not sure you're ready to lead." The words landed like a punch I wasn't expecting. My chest tensed, but I kept my breathing steady. You spend long enough inside a place like this, you learn not to crumble just because someone chooses not to see your worth. I reminded him steady that I'd been the one keeping our biggest account, Varela Systems, happy. I'd repaired systems no one else dared touch. I was always the first through the door and the last to leave. But Mason didn't flinch. "That's great, but we need someone who can run a team, not just the production floor." A slow, warm pressure crawled up my neck, but I swallowed it down. If they wanted leadership, I was ready to give it if they ever stopped burying me under work no one else wanted. Before I could finish explaining, Mason raised a hand. "Let's revisit this discussion soon. For now, handle the supplier issue for me. Can you do that?" My jaw locked. I could have fought harder. I could have said everything boiling in my head. Instead, I forced myself out. "Yeah, I'll take care of it." I stepped out of the supervisor's office, passing the upper-level windowed office I'd dreamed of for years. The glass caught my reflection tired, drained, and dangerously close to fed up. Out by my pickup vehicle, I made 2 choices I'd been avoiding. First, the trip to the nearby reservoir I planned with my boy, gone. Second, I was done writing those 180-page operations guides. Entire facility leaned on without giving me so much as a thank you. Invisible work ends today. Back up. When I first arrived at Northline as the operations lead, the place was barely staying alive. The previous supervisor had walked out without leaving a single instruction. Orders were tangled, suppliers were irritated, machines stalled daily. For the first 4 months, I lived at the facility late nights, 2-day breaks sacrificed, just trying to piece together a system that made sense. Every solution I built ended up in those guides. My name wasn't on them, but my fingerprints were everywhere. Meanwhile, Mason strolled into meetings, grabbed credit where he could, and tossed me minor incremental raises that barely covered the cost of showing up early. Then came the huge Varela Systems contract. I hunted down the specs, coordinated with the technical team, teamed up with the logistics coordinator, and created a plan that saved the facility. Mason. He shook hands at the announcement and walked away with a large performance bonus. I told myself to stay quiet, keep working, wait my turn. But that promotion meeting, that was the moment everything snapped inside me. Standing in the front lot, staring up at that glass office, I realized they didn't want a leader from me. They wanted someone who kept the wheels turning with no credit and no voice. I wasn't going to be that guy anymore. The following day, I didn't walk in at 7:45 like always. I didn't prepare anything. I came in at 9:10, slow and steady, eyes forward. On the production floor, Eli Turner called over, "Hey Jonah, you hear about the supplier mess?" I shrugged. That falls under procurement. He blinked, unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. Not even a little. Nobody gets free fixes from me anymore. My phone flashed messages from Mason, no doubt. I didn't read a single one. And for the first time in years, it felt like I was finally steering my own life. By midday, the same questions start drifting my way. A couple of guys from the assembly division wander over, looking stressed. Parts aren't arriving. A few machines have gone quiet. And Varela Systems is pushing new demands through the system. Every time someone asks what to do, I give the same calm reply. That's outside my responsibilities now, and honestly, saying it feels like pulling a weight off my back I didn't even know I was carrying. After years of being the one who stayed late, sorted disasters, and patched up what other people ignored, it felt strangely good to let the chaos find someone else for a change. My phone kept flashing, but I refused to even glance at it. I already knew it was Mason. When my shift ended, I walked out on time for the first time in forever. No bargaining with myself about just 10 more minutes. No guilt. No extra hours the trip to the nearby reservoir I'd been planning. I canceled it. I didn't need a getaway anymore. I needed something real. That night, I stayed in the home workshop with my boy, kneeling beside his old trail motorcycle. We took the thing apart, piece by piece, setting bolts into neat rows and laughing when the engine grease smeared all over both of us. It had been a long time since I felt like I was actually present in my own home. Work alerts kept lighting up my phone, turning the screen into a blinking warning sign. I didn't touch it. Not once. Tonight wasn't North Line's. Tonight was mine. When I walked in the next morning still, later than usual, the production floor looked like a storm had blown through. Machines idle, parts, carts, scattered, and the Varela Systems project absolutely falling apart. A message from Mason lit up my phone. Need you to handle Varela Systems urgently? I deleted it without opening it. Instead, I sipped my coffee and opened the company server. Scrolling through the 180-page operations guides I had built, every answer to every issue they were facing was right there, waiting for anyone to actually read it. They never had. By the time I reached my station, Mason was already marching toward me. His face was tight, color climbing up his neck like he'd been holding in steam all morning. Jonah, Varela Systems is about to pull the plug. I need you to get upstairs and fix this. I let the silence settle for a few seconds before speaking. All the steps are in the guides. Everything you need is on the server. I didn't stand. I didn't hurry. I didn't pretend to care. Mason's jaw tightened. I don't have time to dig through that. You're the one who knows how it works. Come on, jump in on this. I'm tied up with a workplace safety audit right now, I answered, steady and calm. That takes priority. He opened his mouth, ready to argue. I cut him off gently, but firmly. You've got the resources to sort this out. Then I turned and walked away, leaving him simmering in the wreckage he'd ignored for years. At 4:55, I clocked out again. Before I even reached the front lot, my phone was flashing non-stop at missed calls in a row. When I got home, the count had climbed to 86. Most from Mason, some from the Varela Systems director, a few from unknown numbers. I tossed the phone into the pickup vehicle, went inside, and sat down to dinner. My kids talked about school and their school assignment, and for once, the world didn't feel like it was collapsing on my shoulders. I slept deeper than I had in years. In the following midweek, I found myself sitting in a meeting suite with Mason and Grant Whitfield. The pressure in the room felt like it was pushing the air out through the walls. Grant didn't bother with pleasantries. Jonah, we need you to stabilize the Varela Systems situation. Before I could speak, Mason jumped in, voice sharp. The promotion's yours, just handle it. I leaned back, studying both of them. I'm not chasing that promotion anymore. They froze. Mason looked like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. I wasn't finished. A competing company offered me a senior role, better pay, better benefits, full control of my team. Grant's expression shifted, eyes narrowing, mind spinning. I can match that offer, he said quickly. We value your work. Don't rush into a bad choice. I shook my head. It's not about the money. I want authority, respect. I've kept this facility standing for 6 years, and I'm done cleaning up messes I didn't make. I leaned forward. I'll stay, but only if I lead my own team from here on out. And Mason remains where he is. Grant blinked, taken aback. Mason's face was drained of color. Slid a folded letter across the table, my 2-week notice, and walked toward the door before it closed behind me. I heard Grant's voice cut through the tension Mason inside. Now, but I didn't turn back. I had already made my choice. I didn't bother looking back that day. I walked out like a man who had already turned the page, At the start of the new week, I got a message from Grant Whitfield asking me to stop by his executive office. The moment I stepped in, I could tell he'd been waiting. He leaned forward like he didn't want to waste a second. "Mason told me part of what's going on," he said, easing back in his chair. "Jonah, I want to make this simple for both of us. We need someone who can lead without getting dragged down by distractions. I'm offering you the operations director position, an 80% salary increase, 3 days remote, and you'd report directly to me. Think it over? On paper, it was the kind of offer people dream about: more money, more breathing room. But I'd stayed at Northline Manufacturing for reasons that had nothing to do with a paycheck. "I'll take the 2-day break to think it through," I said evenly, "but right now, I'm still cleaning up the Varela Systems mess. Let me get that stable first." He nodded, relieved I wasn't walking out immediately. "Fair enough. Let's settle the urgent issues, then revisit." I left the office feeling the weight of everything shifting around me. I jumped into the Varela Systems problem next. I called the director with a clear plant step-by-step recovery tasks, realistic deadlines, and who needed to do what. I wasn't swooping in to look like a hero. I was showing them that structure matters more than scrambling. After the call, I assigned tasks to the right people instead of doing everything myself. If they were going to grow, they needed to stop waiting for me to rescue them. Later that afternoon, Mason Harris caught me near my station. He looked off balance, like he was fighting to hold himself together. "Jonah, can we talk?" he said quietly. "I know you've taken on a lot over the years. I never meant to leave you in that spot." I stepped in before he could continue. "You kept me there because you relied heavily on my expertise," I said plainly. "You think I didn't notice?" His eyes shifted. His jaw tightened like he wanted to say sorry but didn't know how to form the words. "I'm not asking for an apology," I added. "Just remember who held this place together." While you walked through the glass-eyed office, shaking hands and smiling for reviews, he looked down, uncomfortable. But the dynamic had changed. The decisions weren't in his hands anymore, they were in mine. "I'll think about everything," I told him, and walked off before he could start another excuse. The 2-day break felt like someone had hit a giant reset button. I took my boy out on one of our old weekend outings, casting lines into the quiet water and talking about school, his latest trail motorcycle idea, and the jumps he was conquering behind the house. Somewhere between the calm water and his laughter, something clicked inside me. I'd spent too long being the dependable one, the worker who absorbed every hit and never asked for anything in return. That version of me was done by late weekend evening. I knew exactly what I had to say at the start of the new week. I called Grant. "I'll take the position," I told him, "but I'm setting 2 conditions." "I'm listening," he said. "First, I pick my own team. I want people who take ownership, no more dragging dead weight." "That's reasonable," he replied. "And second, Mason stays in his current role. I'm not here to tear the place apart. I'm here to build something better." Grant hesitated for half a second. "I can make that work. Keeps things politically clean too. But are you sure you want him around?" "Yes," I said without wavering. "He'll either rise to the expectations or fall behind. Either way, I'm not babysitting." He agreed. When the announcement went out, the shift was instant. People who barely nodded at me before suddenly wanted to shake my hand, congratulate me, act like I'd been their favorite coworker all along. Later that day, Mason stepped into my new upper-level windowed office and dropped a report packet on my desk. "The exact meeting is tomorrow," he said quietly. "There are a few things you should review." I nodded. "I've got it, Mason. I'll look it over." He paused in the doorway, staring at me for a heartbeat. "Jonah, I never meant to hold you back. I figured you were comfortable where you were. I didn't move. That right there is the issue." He swallowed, shifting uncomfortably. "I relied heavily on your expertise," he said quietly. "I really couldn't afford to lose you." He wasn't wrong, but things are different now. I let his words fade without giving him anything back. There was nothing left to explain. If Mason didn't understand before, he wasn't going to understand now. I walked out of the office feeling lighter, like someone had finally taken a weight off my shoulders that I'd been carrying for years. The first few weeks in my new position felt like stepping into a different world. The assembly division was still limping along, stretched thin after months of patchwork fixes. But I wasn't the one sprinting around with a wrench trying to save every failing machine. I had a team knowing I was using them the way they should have been used all along. I started with the people everyone else ignored. There was Nolan Fry, the tech who could diagnose a machine faster than most people could describe the problem. Nobody had ever trusted him with leadership, but the potential was sitting right there. Then there was Jenna Price, the parts clerk who practically carried the entire supply chain in her head. She could tell you which vendor would respond in 5 minutes and which one needed 3, yet she spent her days drowning in forms. I paired Nolan and Jenna on a system overhaul and gave them real ownership. Within 2 weeks, they were outperforming whole crews. Overtime dropped by almost half. Deadlines that had seemed impossible were suddenly routine. And Varela Systems noticed doubling their order without hesitation. The facility started running smoother than anyone remembered, and word spread quickly. Mason and I kept things professional. We weren't close, and we didn't pretend to be, but something like muted acknowledgement settled between us. He didn't interfere with what I was doing, and I didn't chase him for approval. Half a year later, the call I never expected came in. They wanted me as the new executive vice president. What surprised me wasn't the promotion. It was that Mason had been the loudest voice pushing for it. But the real win wasn't the title. It was knowing the work finally mattered. No more carrying the facility on my back, only to watch someone else stand in the spotlight. That night, I went home early, something I hadn't done in ages, and sat at the kitchen table helping my kid with his school assignment. As we pieced together the project, I remembered all the nights I'd come home too tired to even ask how his day went. This time was different. He wasn't just watching me work, he was watching me lead. I launched a full in-house training program next, not a flimsy binder passed around and forgotten. An honest pathway for people who'd been stuck in the shadows too long. Nolan stepped up first. He'd spent years buried in troubleshooting, but now I put him in charge of it. I'd seen him break down problems that baffled entire teams. He had what it took. He just needed space. Jenna was next. I moved her from filling forms to designing the processes that controlled how parts moved through the entire building. With her insight, we cut clutter, streamlined ordering, and eliminated delays that used to choke production. I made sure she heard it straight from me. She wasn't just the person behind a counter, she was the backbone of how the place functioned. The numbers backed it up. Overtime fell by 40%. Productivity climbed. Varela Systems doubled their order again, and the Varela Systems director called to thank us personally. That was the kind of call I'd spent 6 years waiting for. One afternoon, Grant Whitfield dropped by my upper-level windowed office. His usual composed look had been replaced by something more genuine. "The executive committee hasn't been this pleased in years," he said. "You've changed the direction of this entire facility." I nodded. I wasn't chasing applause, but I accepted it for my team more than for myself. Driving home, I thought about the version of me who used to show up before sunrise, patching issues no one else cared about, collecting nothing but minor incremental raises and a pat on the back. That man was gone. I was leading now. And my kid was seeing that leadership shape something real, not just watching me collapse under everyone else's workload. For the first time, the promotion that mattered wasn't on paper. It was sitting in the passenger seat beside me, watching the example I was finally able to set.